Hey, good morning to those of you out there on the West Coast. Good afternoon to those of you here on the East Coast with me. We got a good training in front of us. I'm just running a little bit hectic. Today is the day where I'm running a lot with my kids doing school stuff, and so I'm a little teeny bit flustered, but I got my act together, and we will dive right in. First off, to those of you showing up early and on time, thanks so much. I really appreciate that. When you do, it helps LinkedIn push the word out to other people that the training's live and we're getting rocking and rolling. So let me just pull up my screen so I can make sure that we're live and good. 1 second. And then I want to share a tip for you, for those of you showing up early and on time. And for those of you who showed up real early, you probably saw the tip already because I left up my screen and Cecilia on my team, my sister, she actually pinged. It's like, do you mean to do that? No. But anyways, here's my tip for you. As we move into today's training, I really want you to understand this idea about communication and not assuming that people understand what you're talking about or what you're trying to do. There's a great quote out there that says the biggest problem with communication is the illusion that it took place at all. The biggest problem with communication is the illusion that it took place at all. And the reason I thought about this tip today is because Tracy, who's in our training, was talking about SAP. Yesterday I did training and it was on simplified acquisition procedures, or SAP, SAP, right? But there's also this big company called SAP that has products the government uses, et cetera. And when she was interacting with, I think PTAX or whoever, right? They were sending a lot of unrelated opportunities to her, and she began to realize, oh, maybe that's the challenge. And it gave me this idea to just remind you that sometimes it's good to just stop for a second and make sure the other party is fully understanding what you're talking about, that you're using the same language to talk about whatever is important to you. So anyways, just remember that quote. The single biggest problem with communication is the illusion that it took place at all. When you remember that, you're going to have good communication with everybody out there. Thanks for engaging in the chat. I really appreciate that. I love seeing people do that. We've got a good community in the GovCon chamber here in our trainings, and it's awesome when you do when you engage in chat because you're networking with others in the government contracting space. All right, let me get started with the formal part of our training. It's a good day. We've got almost 200 people here, so that's always good. I'm going to stop looking at chat so I can just go hunkering down on today's training. After I got out of the Army, I started and built two IT government contracting small business companies, right? And both of these are in the federal market. Throughout that time, throughout those companies, I've won prime contracts, I've won small subcontracts, I've won millions of dollars in federal government contracting. I've done this at DHS, at VA, at HHS, at the Army, at the Air Force, at multiple DoD, what we call fourth estate agencies. I've teamed with small businesses. I've teamed with large businesses to have success. And all of that, though, I was really running and operating my companies intuitively. I was good at sales, and I knew what I was doing around that, but I didn't fully understand the process enough of government contracting in order to teach it. And especially when I was doing government contracting for 20 years, it was really the things that were taught to us were billion-dollar company processes taught to small businesses. And what they didn't understand was that small businesses, it generally is the very same person with every single hat. If you need graphics done, that's your hat. If you need to write a proposal, that's you. If you need to go talk to the customer, if you need to actually do the work, that's you, right? And so I wanted to create a process that was so much more simple and just designed for us. And so I've been documenting our process and really refining it over the last 6 years, helping thousands of small businesses throughout the entire nation. And that's what I'm going to talk to you about today. Really, everything I'm teaching you, it's not focused in one particular area. When I started the GovCon Chamber, I started it with this idea that it was going to be virtual so that I could reach small businesses from Guam to the U.S. Virgin Islands and everywhere in between. And even right now, we got people as far away as Arizona. Yes, I know Guam's farther and I know Hawaii's farther, but Arizona was the first one I saw today. So let's talk about 7 steps to winning federal revenue in 2024. I'm going to cover this topic in 3 main sections. The first thing I want to talk about is just introducing you. And I'm just looking at my chat to make sure I'm sharing my screen. I am. There we go. So it looks like my mobile's behind. We're going to be staggered today. Anyways, in today's training, I'm going to cover it in three main topics. The first thing I want to do is just give you a high-level overview of the 7-step process that I teach for federal revenue success. And then after that, I want to walk through each of those 7 steps and really give you the purpose of the step and what to do in the step. And then for some points, I might talk about how or the goals, etc. And then the last thing I want to wrap up with today is, well, what do you do today? I'm going to teach you the 7-step process. What can you do with it? I don't like to just teach you for the sake of teaching you, right? I like to figure out the one thing you need to know today in order to start having success tomorrow. Whether you've been in government contracting 1 day or 1 year or 10 years, it doesn't matter. When you look at this process, you're going to be able to sit there and see how it applies to your business and how you can start moving closer to the goals that you've set for yourself in 2024. So if you're along for the ride and this makes sense, it's a good topic for you, put process rocks into the chat. Let me know that you understand that we're going to be talking about process today. If you don't know who I am, my name is Neil McDonald. I'm the president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce, and I want to welcome you to my federal sales training where I provide tips for success in the federal market. I spent 20 years in the federal market as a small business owner, and since 2018, I've been teaching people like you that government contracting is not a secret. It's just a process. When we follow a process A to Z, we're going to have repeatable, predictable results. That's what I want for you. It's exactly why I'm excited about today's topic, because it literally is my 7-step process. One of the things I want you to just pay attention to before we dive into today's topic is, if you haven't already subscribed to my newsletter, subscribe to it. It's the Government Contracting Success newsletter. It's where I put information out about people or points of contact within agencies you can reach out to. Often I'm giving names, numbers, and emails. It's also where we share agency strategic information, their challenges, their goals, etc. So everything in the newsletter is designed to help you with your federal market or government contracting activities. The other thing is, I want to thank the people who registered for training. We had a ton of people, I don't even know, like 150 people registered for training today. And when you register for training, first, it's a thank you to us, and I really appreciate that. Second, it lets LinkedIn push the word out to more people. Third, if you want to think about this selfishly from your standpoint, when you register, you're able to get access to all the people who also registered, so you can make connections. You can connect with them and say, hey, I saw you in training. I'm in the training as well. Love to connect, right? There's over 200 people here in live right now. Yesterday, we had 436, but you can't network with all 436 afterwards if they don't engage in chat. But when you register for training, then you're able to do that. I love this because I actually can engage with all of you. So it's not a big help for me as much as for you. It's a thank you to me, but it's a big help to you because you really begin to build your network. You don't have to struggle to go find people. Here are government contractors coming in. Here are federal buyers coming into our world. So make sure you register for training. Last thing is, if you're not familiar with this, on my LinkedIn profile, I have a bell on the right-hand side underneath my banner. Hit that bell and make sure you don't miss important information I share out there about government contracting. Okay, so let's get rocking and rolling, talking about the 7-step process for federal revenue success. This is the process diagram that I put together to really try to simplify this complex activity, right? When I was growing up in government contracting, they kept shoving Shipley down my throat. And Shipley is a billion-dollar process. It's way too complex. And so I said, how can I take that level of maturity, but put it in a small business way where we small businesses can really knock it out? And so I have the 7-step process broken up into 2 sections. The idea is the first 3 process steps are to build a relationship. It's this path to relationships. And then the second phase there is the wheel of success. Once you're on that wheel, you're not getting off and you're just going to have more and more success, right? Yes, I'm simplifying it, but that's how sales is. If you're on the wheel of success, you've built relationships, you're off to the races. So these 7 steps in my 7-step process begins with research, right? Seeking to first understand the buyer. Stephen Covey talks about seek first to understand, then to be understood. Well, the last 6 steps of the process are about being understood to a degree, but that first step is seeking to understand the buyer. There's this great line that says, people don't care what you know until they know that you care. When you do research, you're showing that you care. So then it also allows you to do the other steps pretty easy. The second step after research is targeting. And targeting is about finding the right people to call. It's literally building a list of 200 people so that you can just start dialing for dollars, is what I call it, right? You have a long spreadsheet, CRM tool, whatever. Actually, I wouldn't even put it into CRM, just put it in the spreadsheet. When you reach people, then you can put them into CRM. So targeting is about just identifying names, numbers, and emails that you could start doing, reaching out to. And that's what you do in outreach. Outreach is this effort of doing cold calls, reaching out, having meetings, and you're trying to get meetings with strategic relationships or teaming partners or federal buyers. And outreach is just picking up the phone. All of that leads to you building strategic relationships. These are relationships that will lead to your success. And most importantly, you can see the arrows here. It leads to you hearing about slam dunk opportunities. And when you have slam dunk opportunities, you can write winning proposals. Winning proposals lead to sales success. When you have sales success, it leads right into a stronger set of relationships and new relationships. Hence the reason I say you're on this wheel of success going round and round. So if that makes sense and you want to be on the wheel of success, put wheel of success into the chat. Just let me know you understood that. I'm going to go through each one of the 7 steps, and I'm going to try to track my time. I got about 20 minutes. I end right at 12:30. But let's begin with step 1, research. The purpose of research is to understand the agency better than anybody else understands that agency. This is why I say you must pick a single agency when you're trying to sell into the federal government, right? If you pick too many agencies, you're not going to really get to know any of them. But if you pick a single agency, you will do well. It doesn't mean you can't go after another agency opportunity that you see that might be a slam dunk fit. But when you do business development, when you're doing true sales, you pick your customer and you work to get in there. And so the purpose of research is to understand that agency so well that you understand it better than any of the people who actually even work there. Think about this. You're trying to understand the entire agency, where the people who work there, fundamentally, they're just understanding their part, their cog in a wheel, right? If you look at Department of Commerce, it's got multiple bureaus. The people who work in one of those bureaus don't really know what's going on in the other bureaus, right? They're aware of it a little bit, but you should understand it better than anybody. You don't do this in a day, by the way. This is a continuous thing. And so some of the things you look for, their organizational chart, right? How is that agency or that bureau structured? If you think about commerce, again, since I said that, what are the bureaus? And inside the bureaus, what are their different divisions or branches that they have? This really helps you understand. I put out a post a while back on LinkedIn with the Department of Veterans Affairs. This thing was gold. It was like 300 pages of their organizational structure. And I was able to lead down to the branch level offices. And we're talking about hundreds and hundreds of offices around the country that enabled me to start creating a plan around which ones I wanted to reach out to and which ones I don't. So when you pick an agency, you want to do that same thing. You're also trying to understand from a strategic standpoint, what are the challenges they face? What are their goals, objectives, and activities? And you can find these in their strategic documents, usually in their About Us. Sometimes you'll find it in the How to Do Business With Us pages. But you're looking for an agency's strategic plan or an agency's annual report. Those are the two ones that are really good ones to start getting in. As you have relationships, you can learn a lot more through conversations. And then the last one is just identifying which program office buys what you sell. As you look at their organizational structure, you begin to understand through your research, whether it's an FPDS or USA Spending, et cetera, well, which offices are buying what you sell. So if you sell lawn care, you're not going to go to the CIO's shop, the Chief Information Officer. And likewise, you're not going to go to the facility management folks if you sell cybersecurity. So understanding which program offices buy what you sell is important. So the purpose of research is understanding that agency. The second step in the 7-step process for federal revenue success is targeting. Here, you want to know who to call. You just want to build a list of 1 to 200 people that you can call. So you're not doing a lot of heavy thinking here. You're just doing a lot of searching. You're going into the website trying to find information. You're going into LinkedIn. And I've shown training on how to go into LinkedIn, or you going into SAM and FPDS and see opportunities that are coming up or have dropped, and you can find people in there. In FPDS, every single contract that was awarded that's in FPDS, you can generally find the contracting officer or some of the key people in the top right-hand corner. And so you can grab all this information, and what you're trying to do is build a list of people to call. And there's 2 different main groups of people I want you to call, and I got those under what? Right? The first group are federal buyers. These are agency personnel. I group them into 3 types of people within the federal buyer world. And really in federal sales, it's kind of the same way, but focus of receptivity, focus of power, and focus of dissatisfaction, which I just got out of order. But the idea of focus receptivity, these are people who are willing to talk with you, but they don't buy anything. Think about a small business professional at any given agency. That's the focus of receptivity. The focus of dissatisfaction is the program office. These are the people who want something. They're the actual user buyers, right? And then you have the focus of power in the government. That's always the contracting officer and their team. So like a contract specialist. You want to build a list of names. And I gave you some ideas of like SAM and FPDS, for example, is a great way to find focuses of power in particular. The second group that you're looking for and targeting is if I'm going into commerce as an example, then I want to go find the small businesses and large businesses that are winning in there. And I might find like the top 50 in each kind of category. Or maybe I'm trying to find 25 hubs, 25 women-owned, 25 service disabled veteran, right? I find the winners at the target agency I'm going after, and I can find that in FPDS or USA Spending, et cetera. And when I find that information, I will go off and try to find key people in that company. With small businesses, it's very easy. Largest, it's a little bit more work. But I build my targeting list with those people. Now that I've done step 2 of the 7-step process for federal revenue success, I have a targeting list. All right, so step 3 is outreach. And the idea of outreach as it relates to the federal sales process that I teach is this is where you're doing outbound sales or cold calls, right? You're picking up the phone and you're calling somebody. And the whole purpose behind outreach is to establish relationships, to find people that you can establish strategic relationships with. And I'll talk about strategic in a second. But the idea is you need to pick up the phone and meet with somebody, to talk to somebody, to start building those relationships. We've all probably heard at different points that success in government contracting is with relationships. That's cool, but how do we get those relationships? Who do we build relationships with? Well, targeting tells you kind of who you want to get out to build those relationships with. Outreach is the how of it. You have to pick up the phone, right? And so the idea of outreach in the process, you want to pick up the phone and start dialing for dollars. And this is where you're doing cold calls, trying to schedule a meeting. You want to reach out and schedule 15, 30-minute meeting. And the idea is this is your first meeting where you can go in and make a first impression, but it's also the place where you're going to find yeses and nos the first time. I teach this in other training that I do around sales. Sales is about getting yeses and nos. Always you have nos, right? And the idea is if you call somebody, you're trying to get them to answer within, literally when you're trying to schedule a meeting, you try to get them to do it in seconds. But when you have a meeting within 15 to 30 minutes, you want them to solidly understand, no, we're not a good fit, or yes, we are. And when you have that, then you can keep coming back for more meetings. Outreach isn't just about one meeting. Outreach is you're in outreach, you're in that phase until you establish a relationship. A relationship is not established in the first meeting. And so if you have a first meeting, one of your goals is to always get a second meeting if you want that, right? So if it's a yes for you, you want to have that second meeting. And so outreach is about having multiple meetings until you get to the stage where both of you agree, hey, let's create a strategic relationship. Let's be a strategic relationship to each other, right? And I'll talk about that in 1 second. But the idea inside of outreach, and really any meeting you have, but you want to pay attention to when you do sales calls or outreach, you really want to make sure your meetings are successful, not great meetings. And that's my third bullet here in the what. Successful meetings are ones that move the sale forward. Great meetings are ones where everybody loves everybody, right? You don't want to have a meeting where you come back and you talk to your boss or you talk to yourself or your colleagues and you go, oh, they loved us. We had a great conversation. Everybody was having fun. We were talking about different things. Cool. Did it move the sale forward? If it didn't move the sale forward, then it wasn't a successful sales call. And this outreach activity needs to have successful meetings. And I teach in different training how you have successful meetings, but fundamentally you need to define what is the measurement of success before you go into the meeting. So an example is you might say, I want to get an NDA, or I want to get a strategic plan sent to me. I want to get a follow-on meeting scheduled. Whatever it is, you've defined the measurement of success. Inside of outreach, as you do that, when you have enough successful meetings, you're going to find the people that you want to have relationships with that lead to strategic relationships. So I put a goal down here at the bottom of outreach. You really want to be doing 25 calls per day. And if you don't have strategic relationships, that are leading to opportunities right now, then do 25 calls a day. That's 1 hour at most. Watch 1 hour less of TV, sleep 1 hour less, and do 25 calls. Even if you're fully billable, you can figure out how to make this happen. Do it at 6 a.m., 7 a.m. If you're calling somebody and it's their cell phone next to their pillow, well, that's their problem, not your problem. But for the most part, when you're calling a business or you're calling the agencies, you're going to get their phone and go into the voicemail. And so making those 25 calls is pretty quick. And when you get somebody, you're just going to schedule a meeting. Anyways, when you do 25 calls a day, you're going to have 1,300 calls that you made. You're reaching out to 1,300 new people in a year trying to schedule meetings, right? And when you have 4 meetings per week, which is the minimum you should be trying to get to, you'll have 200 new people, 208 new people a year that you're having a meeting with. When you meet with 200 people that you thought were good enough to be in targeting, do you think you'd be able to build strategic relationships with 8 to 16 of them out of 200? I tell you, yes, absolutely. So let's go ahead and talk about that. Step number 4. This is thirsty business here. By the way, just a sidebar, because we're talking about strategic relationships. I don't know if you can see this, but we have over 300 people in today's training live. So if you're in training, put down in the chat, I'm open to connection. If you're open to connecting with others in the GovCon space, I can see who everybody is, but I want each of you to be able to kind of see it as well, especially if you're open to connections. No pressure. All right, so let's talk about step 4 of my 7-step process for federal revenue success, right? Building strategic relationships. The idea about strategic relationships is to build a relationship that has a mutual commitment to growth. Whether you're talking about a federal buyer or a teammate, you still have a mutual commitment to growth. So with an agency, with a federal buyer person, they're not gonna, it's not gonna be about mutual growth. Hey, we're gonna go after opportunities together. So there, it's about mutual sharing of information. In particular, I would think about a program office. I might be talking to them about what's going on in industry, helping them understand some of the best practices that are out there. What's the new products coming down or trends or whatever it is. And then they'll be sharing with me. They're committed to sharing with me some of the challenges they're facing, some of the goals they're facing, just being candid. This is market research. The government is allowed to do this. And when you find a good strategic relationship within your agency, a strategic relationship, you'll know you're there when you can see and maybe even say it to each other that there's a mutual commitment to our growth, or either our growth in knowledge or our growth in revenue. So as you think about strategic relationships, I want you to understand the difference between a strategic relationship and a friendly relationship or a networking relationship. There's 300 people in here, right? So I have hundreds of people that are in my network that theoretically are relationships, but those aren't strategic relationships. Strategic relationships are very specific. You can only have a small amount, less than 20 strategic relationships in a business. They say when you think about personal friends and you go, how many close friends can I have? That number is like 5. When you go beyond 5, you start weakening the strength of those relationships, because you just can't handle the emotional effort that goes into building a close friendship. Well, it's the same thing with strategic relationships, right? We require time, meeting, understanding their company or their agency, et cetera. And so strategic relationships, it's a very small group of people. And one of the ways I define it is, for a teaming partner, a strategic relationship must be big enough that I could see myself getting 4 positions from them every single year. So if you're in product sales or something else that's a little different, but I'm on the service side, so I always think of a billable employee, but I should be able to get 4 positions from that strategic relationship. If not, it's just a second tier relationship. It's not a bad relationship. We'll go after opportunities, but it's not what I want for a strategic relationship that will lead me to 25 million or lead me to 100 million. The other thing about a strategic relationship is they're committed to meeting regularly, right? So every 2 weeks, if you're meeting with another company, every 2 weeks we're talking, we're figuring out, looking at our pipeline, we're discussing the pipeline and figuring out how do we move stuff forward. If I'm meeting with an agency person, it's not going to be every 2 weeks, but maybe once a month we just touch base. Either way, I'm engaging with them, and when I reach out to ask to talk with them, they get me on. I can get on their schedule, right? So with a teaming partner, you might schedule a recurring meeting. With an agency strategic relationship, It's not so much scheduling a recurring one as anytime you reach out to say, hey, can we talk next week or the week after, they schedule it for you, right? Or they schedule it with you. That's the idea of a strategic relationship, is there is that mutual commitment through activity. One other thing I put down here as a goal is you want 24 strategic relationships, and you don't want them today. You want to build them over time. Like if you have none, take a year. Take time. I'm not here to tell you how to do anything quick. I'm telling you how to do it right and solidly so it sticks. But 8 strategic relationships within your target agency, 8 strategic relationships ideally with small businesses who are winning at that target agency, and 8 strategic relationships with larges who are winning at that agency. If you're really at the beginning, larges aren't going to really want to talk to you. So just increase your small business relationships to 16. If you met with each of these people 1 hour every week, that would still only be 24 hours out of your week. There's no way you're going to meet with them once a week, right? But think about it, every 2 weeks. Now you're talking about 24 hours in an 80-hour block. If your goal is to sell and you're going to be building relationships with these people, then that's not a lot of time to manage these relationships, but the value is huge. All right, let's talk about slam dunk opportunities. And I'm watching my time here. I'm going to pick up the pace. At the top of the success wheel, you have slam dunk opportunities. Slam dunk opportunities are when you're guaranteed to win. You need to know, what is your clear focused offer? What can you do better than most people? Or what can you do best for you, right? Opportunities you're best at. Those are your slam dunk opportunities. And as it relates to these, the whole purpose of this is to get opportunities in your pipeline that you can pursue and that you can win. And so the purpose is to pursue opportunities you can win by finding them and getting them into the pipeline. You do that through relationships and other ways, but you want to make sure you're finding enough of them that you have the right quantity, let's say, 20 in your pipeline that you're pursuing at any given point, and the right contract value. If you're trying to go after a $5 million growth, maybe you need a $40 million or $200 million pipeline. You have to decide. I've done whole trainings on what's the right size for my pipeline. How do I build it? The thing I really want you to pay attention to about opportunities, though, is this is where you're going from business development into capture. Opportunities is fundamentally in the 7-step process about capture. You have an opportunity in there, you found it, BD is putting it in, but capture is about shaping that opportunity, shaping the technical requirements, the acquisition approach, and the way you shape those is through discussions with the federal buyer, et cetera, and with your teammates. And so the idea of having slam dunk opportunities, though, is it enables you to have opportunities you can pursue that you're pretty sure you can win, so that you can write winning proposals. And that's step 6. Step 6 is about writing winning proposals. And in here, and I'm just going to pick up the pace because I want to make sure I end on time, but you can see the slides in a second. But winning proposals are ones that when you write the proposal, the contracting officer goes, man, this is good enough. I could award to this. There might be 2 or 3 winning proposals from your competitors, but you want to make sure you don't go into the, well, they're okay or they're bad list, right? Winning proposals are done by having slam dunk opportunities that you pursued and wrote in a clear, compliant, compelling, and convincing way. And I did a whole training recently on how do you do those 4 bullets on the what. The goal I want to give you is to make sure you're writing 48 proposals. If you had 16 relationships out there, right, strategic relationships, you can make it all subcontracting and just pursue 4 sub opportunities with each one of those relationships. And I know that's a fast thing to say. There's a lot more training where I break this down. Last thing is sales. And the big thing about sales, obviously, is to increase your revenue, right? But it's about learning and building relationships stronger through that process of whether you win or lose. Have your lessons learned. You're on this wheel of success, and so you start moving forward. So here's what I want you to do today. I just want to really make sure I leave this to you. Reverse engineer this 7-step process, right? And if you want the process handout, do me a favor, just put handout in the chat, but also look in the chat. I think maybe my team has put a link in there. But the idea is start here at sales on the wheel of success and go, are we winning? If we're not, are we writing winning proposals? And then walk the process all the way back to research. Figure out what aren't you doing and go back to the earliest stage, shift left in the process to start trying to have success. So here's something to remember and some next steps as you move forward. Go ahead and get the handout from my newsletter. I did a whole article in the newsletter, and there's a button on there. You can click it and download the handout. I think somebody put the link in the chat. Reverse engineer the process, like I said, and then go back one step, or go back to step 1, research often go back there and go, let me just look. Am I doing the right thing? Am I following the process? Part of the process is ending on time. I hope the training was valuable to you. Just remember, government contracting, it is not a secret. It's just a process. I'll see you in the next training.